What is going on, my Guardian Gamers? Is I, Birdman, back with another Destiny 2 build, and today I'm going to be showing off a really solid setup using Titan with a bunch of sword stuff. I definitely think Titans have kind of slept, went under the radar with this one a little bit, even though it's like people who know, Sword Titan, know Sword Titan is really good, but a lot of people don't, so that's why we're making a little setup about it. But before we get into the video, I know you can follow me over on YouTube and Twitter at Birdman778. Give a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, become a member, be like some of the members that have now joined on, get their little name out the end of the video, and comment down below a build that you're interested in seeing, whether it is Titan, Hunter, or Warlock. Now, let's jump right on into this little juicy setup. All right, so we always like to highlight what exotic we're gonna be using for this setup, and that is going to be the Stronghold. The armor perk Clenched Fist maximizes guard stats on equipped swords. You take reduced damage while blocking with your sword. Rapidly damaging targets after blocking shots with the sword grants restoration for a duration determined by the number of shots blocked. Now, this just gives you a lot of health and healing and everything all around, so that you're able to constantly just block, heal, damage. You do that kind of like in a repeating factor, and it is actually a whole lot of fun. I just really have always kind of, I guess, slept on this just because I didn't really want to like build into sword stuff, but this is actually a really fun setup. When it comes to the subclass, obviously we're going to be using Strand for this. Now you might be saying, Bird, Stronghold use Restoration. That's like a solar subclass thing. Like, why aren't we using that? Well, it's because there's a lot of healing stuff throughout the Strand subclass that's really solid for it, and overall it just helps with melee and all that stuff a little bit more. So first off, with your super, obviously Blade Fury, I definitely recommend using this as much as you humanly can because it is really freaking strong. It is the best roaming super in the game in my opinion, so definitely have fun with it. For our melee, obviously Frenzied Blade, take advantage of this. It does that severing strike, and it is also just like really freaking fun to use. You get 3 charges of it, and being able to just like claw at enemies is a lot of fun, especially with the melee damage boost it gets from one of our aspects. Definitely think Shackle Grenade is going to be your best bet for keeping enemies up in the air and doing a bunch of fun stuff. Now, I will say Grapple Grenade can be used and is a lot of fun as well. But I'm just like a bigger fan of like stopping enemies in their tracks, and this is also just a great way to stop unstoppables. So, use it as you must. For our aspects, first off, Into the Fray is going to be a must in my opinion. It reads a string and tangle where casting your super grants Woven Mail for nearby allies. While you have Woven Mail, your melee regeneration rate is increased. Now, again, this is just a great way of getting the Woven Mail started up and everything for you, and being able to have that damage resistance, and then inherently now with this aspect getting that melee regen, so you're able to constantly slash around. And then finally, Banner War. This has become like an absolute lock, I think, on pretty much every single Strand Titan. Defeat a target with a melee attack, finisher, or sword. There you go. See, sword. To raise Banner War that pulses with energy, periodically healing nearby allies, increasing melee and sword damage. Targets defeated by you and nearby allies charge the banner, increasing the speed of its pulses. So obviously, this is going to not only help out our regular melee, but also the sword we're going to be using for this setup. So Banner War is really great for sword setups. Fragment wise, obviously, I think again this is one of those that's like an absolute lock in every single Strand build. Thread of Generation, dealing damage, generates grenade energy. Literally just do things and you get your grenade back. You get that shackle so that you're able to stun champions, as well as just stop a bunch of enemies on the battlefield. Thread of Fury, damaging targets with a tangle grants melee energy. Again, with this setup, like obviously we're going to be focusing on sword the most, but there's going to be times where we don't have our sword available, so being able to constantly get that melee going is going to be very important in my mind. Thread of Continuity, suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration. Obviously we are pretty much doing all of those with this, minus the unravel. So we really just want to make sure that those effects are going as long as humanly possible, so that we're able to take advantage of them against our enemies. And then finally, Thread of Warding, picking up an overpowered grants Woven Mail. Just a great way to constantly keep up that Woven Mail for our setup. Now we got to talk about the coup de grace weapon for this setup, and that's going to obviously be the Lament. I think it's definitely one of the best options out there for this. One, because it has the shield piercing from its attacks whenever you have it charged up. You got it revved up, that Banshee's Wail. You'll see it with its like little icon over the side. Gains stacks when damaging with revved attacks. Additional stacks increase the damage and damage resistance of heavy attacks. So all around, just a really, really solid sword. I mean, this has been, I think a DPS king for the longest time. It's been one of them, I should say. I remember back in the day doing Deepstone Crypt, and this was an absolute must for that middle Atrax part. And then rep consumption damaging a combatant heals the wielder. So obviously we're getting good healing out of this on top of the banner war that we're going to be doing. Now, when it comes to our mods we're going to be using for this setup, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I had a real tough time doing this, but I kind of just built around using our lament, just because again, our subclass does so much for us in regards to damage reduction, healing, damage, all that across the board. I was just like, you know what, let's just make our sword as good as humanly possible. So first off, we're our helmet, we're going to be using a solar siphon just because we're going to be mainly using that lament, but I also recommend using some type of solar weapon in your energy slot, or maybe something with osmosis in your top spot to help compensate for that. Heavy ammo finder so that we have increased heavy ammo drops throughout our play, because again, we're going to be mainly using that lament as much as we humanly can. And then a hands-on, just because we are going to be meleeing a bit with, especially with that frenzy blade. So it's definitely a good one to have on. With our gloves, I just went with kind of a fastball just to be able to, you know, chuck that suspend shackle grenade a little bit farther. Impact induction, causing damage with our melee, reduce our grenade cooldown, getting us to that shackle back. And then in kind of a hot take here, I'm gonna be honest with you, solar dexterity, so that we're able to stow and ready our solar weapons faster. Again, I really like this just because I'm using a 1-2 punch shotgun in our energy slot, and then the lament, being able to just like quickly speed between those as fast as humanly possible. I think is definitely going to be beneficial for this build. For our chest piece, I went with a charged up, so we're able to get another stack of armor charge for this, and then 2 concussive dampeners. Actually, you could probably swap one of those out for a melee if you're wanting to, but again, just kind of completely up to you. For our legs, I did a stacks on stacks, so that every single orb power we get counts as 2 stacks of armor charge, and then a double weapon surge for solar, getting us up to, I believe it's about a 17.5% increase to our damage with solar weapons. And finally, on our class item, I did a powerful attraction, so that whenever we use our barricade, we're pulling in all those orbs, a distribution so that we get a cooldown, and then finally a time dilation so that those stacks of armor charge last a bit longer. When it comes to your artifact, pretty much just start towards the middle. First off, get a solar, elemental orb, definitely important. When it comes to the force slot, Elemental Fury is always going to be an absolute must. Communal pickups is going to be a fun one to use, especially with all those orbs going to be around. And then a refreshing pickups to get a recharge on our abilities whenever we pick up a Tangle or an Elemental Orb. And then finally, Monochromatic Maestro, again, getting that nice big old damage boost there, as well as an Elemental Munitions, so that we're able to get a bit more heavy bricks for our sword. Now, I've sort of like to say exactly how this can be viable in endgame. I always like to look at the champions for this. First off, for the barrier, your Lament's going to be able to carry all of those for you. For Unstoppables, I definitely recommend that Shackle Grenade. It's going to be very beneficial for you. And then finally, for Overload, I'd pretty much just say try to match maybe a hand cannon on your top spot or your middle spot for this, just so you're able to do that. But at the same time, Shackle Grenade, enemy with that, as well as Lament, you'll be perfectly fine. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys had a really good time seeing all this fun stuff. Let me know down below some setups that you're interested in seeing yourself. And again, as always, make sure you follow me over on YouTube and Twitter at Birdman778. Like, subscribe, and become a member. And yeah, I just appreciate all the love on the recent videos. Really, really excited for everything that we're going to be getting in Season 23. A lot of changes. They actually just released all the weapon changes yesterday with like all the different archetypes and stuff. A couple exotics getting a pretty big buff. So really interested in seeing what we got coming down the bend. But again, thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great night, day, or whatever it may be.